This video is going to be all about monogamy and why is it so popular, or why is it so unpopular? Do you think that monogamy is the standard everywhere? Think again. I'm also going to go deep down into the rabbit hole of who created the monogamy-only lie and why it is forced on us. Well, let's investigate.
This is not my world, 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 this is not my world.
Have you ever brought up the idea of polygamy with a girl you liked and her answer was, I am monogamous? Where does that idea come from? Well, that idea comes from Disney. And of course, before then, from the Vatican. I have a video about just this, where I also go into the details of eugenics and why monogamy was forced on us. I'm going to link that in the video description below. I'm sure you know about the CIA program MK Ultra. Now, this is not just about programming us with things like that we have to just obey the authorities and we should be consuming, the consumer electronics and things like that. But it's also about relationships. Deep down, every little girl get the idea of that she is a princess. Why? Because they were watching Disney. And Disney is full of monogamy. If you haven't realized, it's all about monogamy actually. Because you have a princess and the guy on the white horse, the knight, who is, in the shiny armor coming to rescue her. That's the idea. And it's not just in Disney, it's also in Hollywood movies, everywhere. Most movies have this theme. And that's what women like about it. Now, if you research this deeper, you will see that this is just the programming. This is an agenda. And the agenda is the monogamy-only lie. Monogamy is actually quite unnatural, especially for men, but also for women. Women also like to belong to a big family and also be cared for and share certain tasks with other women. That's why it usually works. But of course, when you talk about monogamy, then it's only her and she has to do all the chores around the house, but she's going to be the loved one in return, right? The only one. Now that never works and the divorce rates actually show this. It's quite clear that monogamy is a psyop. It's a fucking lie. And of course, most women and most men as well buy this. We are so much bombarded with the monogamy-only lie from everywhere. So when a girl says to you that she is monogamous, that means she's telling you that she was programmed from her childhood to believe that monogamy is the only normal acceptable relationship type. This sentence only means that she's aware of what the society expects from her. But in fact, this is not just the society, it's the ruling entities that want this. Because they want to keep our numbers down. And monogamy is a perfect solution for that. Just watch my video about the overpopulation agenda and the Georgia Guidestones. You will see what I mean. The monogamy-only lie is not only about monogamy, it's also about feminism and destroying the society and the family as a whole. Why? Because the princess is always some kind of bitch, right? She's presented as some kind of very beautiful woman, but she's very moody, she's very tempered, and very egoistic. Most princesses in most fairy tales are brats. And when parents tell their daughter that you are my little princess, they are actually programming her to accept nothing else but the best man. You know what? There are no best men. There are good men, bad men. There are also Batman. That's another story. But the thing is, Hollywood and Disney programmed women to expect a very high standard from men, which is unrealistic. Only very few women will get the celebrities, and they are also actors, right? In order to get one of those actors, you need to be an actor, you need to be born into that actor family, and then that means you are the slave of the warden. You are an MK Ultra slave. Do you want that? Well, go for it. But let me tell you what is real life. Real life is full of shit. Also, relationships are not always very smooth. I'm sure you know this by now. Most of these relationships are monogamous, obviously, by design. It just doesn't work. And we are constantly kept in this loop of thinking that monogamy is the standard and that's what we should aspire to, and yet we know deep down that it doesn't work. We see it all around us, we see it in our relationships, and yet we cling to it. These entities are really so successful in their programming. They know how to do this. So this princess is a feminist bitch usually, right? She has all the high standards and she has to get the best man in the world, coming on a white horse in a shiny armor. Ladies, this never happens. This is a fairy tale and not based on reality. Once we have an unexpected expectation in our relationships, then it also sets it up for failure. Want that man to be, in a way, how we saw it in Disney, how we saw it in the movies. That doesn't work. The same is true for men. Men expect the women to be like in the fairy tales and in the movies. That doesn't work either. You have to be realistic and just be on earth. Stay grounded. One of the other means these parasites program these little girls is through toys like Barbie. You will never see Ken next to Barbie and Kate. It's only going to be just Ken and Barbie. So early on, these young girls are programmed to accept that this is real and this is normal. And that's how they grow up. And of course, then it is very difficult to break this programming. Now, let's talk about monogamy. I just made a simple search for monogamy and I'm going to look at some of these links that were here. So first off is monogamy in Wikipedia. Let's have a look at this. I'm going to switch to mobile view. And there we go. Wikipedia monogamy is a form of relationship in which an individual has only one partner during their lifetime. Alternately, only one partner at any one time, serial monogamy, as compared to non-monogamy, e.g. polygamy or polyamory. The term is also applied to the social behavior of some animals, referring to the state of having only one mate at any one time. Talking about serial monogamy, I have to add that if you are divorced from one woman and yet you are still supplying her with child support and you have another woman who you are married to, you're basically polygamous because you are supporting two families. They just don't say it that way. Let's have a look at the terminology. The word monogamy derives from the Greek monos, alone, and gamos, marriage. So an alone marriage. Basically that's what it is. You are alone. You have no help. It doesn't work for men, it doesn't work for women. So it's fucked up, big time. Now let's have a look at the contents here. Terminology, we looked at that. Frequency in humans, let's have a look at that. That would be interesting. Distribution of social monogamy. According to the Ethnographic Atlas by George P. Murdoch, of 1,231 societies from around the world noted, 186 were monogamous, 453 had occasional polygyny, 588 had more frequent polygyny, and 4 had polyandry. Now let that sink in. Basically, Murdoch found that out of 1,231 societies from around the world, most of them were polygynous. Only the West is monogamous. Why the West? Well, that's where the parasites operate. That's where we get all the programming. Hollywood, Disney, Barbie, fairy tales. It's all the production of the West. And that's what tries to cast the web around all the nations. But as you can see, 186 were monogamous, which means the minority. It is the minority of the world that is monogamous. And most people, most societies, naturally know that this doesn't work. And most of them are polygamous, therefore. Let's make a calculation here. So let's open Google. So let's get the first number, 453. 453. Plus 588, that's going to be 1041, and now we are going to divide that by 1231. Okay, so 1041 divided by this number. So that means 84% of the world's societies are polygamous. Monogamy is the standard everywhere around the world. It's a fucking lie. And here is where cheating comes in, right? That's why most men cheat. I'm not saying cheating is good, but it's just the effect of the monogamy lie. Because if you don't have to lie about you wanting to have multiple partners in your life, then you don't need to cheat. You don't need to lie. Right? Because then you would be allowed to have as many women as you want and as many as you can afford. So cheating is just a byproduct, but it's natural for men to want to have multiple women in their lives at the same time. Now here's an interesting one. They continue in this section, distribution of social monogamy. Divorce and remarriage can thus result in serial monogamy. This can be interpreted as a form of plural mating. One way or another, you're going to be polygamous, even if you follow the serial monogamy agenda. Now, let's have a look at non-monogamy. I have this open from the Google search monogamy. The next one is non-monogamy. So let's have a look at that. And I'm going to switch to mobile view for you guys. So here it is. Non-monogamy or non-monogamy is an umbrella term for every practice or philosophy of intimate relationship that does not strictly hew to the standards of monogamy. You can see it in the wording, standards of monogamy. They set up standards, just like with EMF. If you haven't watched my video on EMF, please do, because I talk about standards and how they manipulate the standards. Standard is something that the parasites set for us to aspire to, and most of those standards are fake, phony lies, creating prisons for our minds and our bodies. Now let's continue, particularly that of having only one person with whom to exchange sex, love and affection. In that sense, non-monogamy may be as accurately applied to infidelity and extramarital sex as to group marriage or polyamory. More specifically, non-monogamy indicates forms of interpersonal relationships intentionally undertaken in which demands for exclusivity of sexual interaction or emotional connection, for example, are attenuated or eliminated, and individuals may form multiple and simultaneous sexual or romantic bonds. This stands in contrast to monogamy, yet may arise from the same psychology. Now, I want to mention here something because I read romantic bonds. Now, another lie, romanticism, and I'm going to have just a whole video about romanticism because that's another hoax created by Hollywood and the parasites. We are not cut out for romanticism. It's a new agenda. It never has been part of human culture. All of these fucking bastards are bringing this in to destroy the family. I'm not saying that you shouldn't have feelings for the person that you have sex with. I think you should. I actually don't believe in hookup culture and one-night stands. But to aspire for romanticism is a programming. Loving someone doesn't have to be romantic, because love is an action. Now here's the next article on the Google search I made. 8 signs a monogamous relationship isn't for you. Let's have a look at that. What do they say? The cut. The sky is blue, the earth is round, and in Western society so many people think relationships are meant to be shared with one person. But maybe monogamy isn't the only way to love. Now, here's one keyword that they like to use, shared with one person. Now, sharing is one of the things that is very misleading, because most women who hear the term polygamy, they want to say things like, I don't share my man, I don't think we share love, I don't want to share my love, and things like that. Well, if you have children, multiple children, you are going to share your love anyway, right? I mentioned that in my previous video. We also love both of our parents, not just one. So we are able to share our love. Nothing wrong with that. But it seems it's problematic when it is about relationships, right? Why? Not because it's natural, but because we are programmed to believe this shit. It's bullshit. I think some people are non-monogamous by orientation, and if they try to force themselves to be monogamous, it's going to hurt. I think most men are, and actually most women are as well. They just don't know it because of the programming. Says Dr. Elizabeth Sheff, a sociologist who has written several books on polyamory. It's never going to feel comfortable. Below, Dr. Sheff shares 7 traits that could indicate a monogamous relationship isn't right for you and that you would be happy exploring polyamorous relationships. Going back to non-monogamy, we can see that there are different types of non-monogamy. There are basically 3 major types. One is polygyny, the other one is polyamory, and the third one is polyandry. Now, polyandry is the least popular option around the world, and it means that one woman have multiple male partners. Now, this is only prevalent in poor countries. Why? Because people want to keep their land, and therefore the males don't want to, give up their land or sell it. So they all want to keep their own land, and so they marry one woman. That's what polyandry is, and it's only in 4 societies according to Murdoch. But of course, nowadays the hookup culture makes women have multiple partners, sometimes at the same time, which means the monogamy agenda is actually also making women polyandrous. Traditionally, a man had multiple women, and heredity can be traced because there's one man and he knows who he fucks. Whichever woman under him is pregnant, he knows that most likely it is his offspring. So they know how to distribute heredity, and that's it, done deal. But in case of polyandry, one woman and multiple men, she will never know who was the father. And DNS test is another story. I think most of it is fake, so let's not even get into that. But traditionally wouldn't even have DNA testing, right? And if we want to build strong societies and strong families, we need to know the heredity. We need to know who is the heir, because if we don't, this society is going to collapse, and it's already collapsing. You are an extrovert who is genuinely passionate about relationships. People who seem to be the most dedicated polyamorists, relationships are their hobby, explains Dr. Chef. They do it, they think about it, they read about it all the time, they just love it. If you have a lot of enthusiasm for that, then even awesome. Okay, now I remember why I went back to non-monogamy. It was because I don't believe in polyamory, because polyamory is a mixture of both polyandry and polygyny. Polygyny is when one man have multiple wives. Polyamory doesn't even really require committed relationships. It's just whoever comes, get in, group sex, and basically that could be 3 men, 2 women, and that could be a polyamorous relationship. I think that's fucked up. The heredity is not going to be sorted, so it's not going to work. Let's go back to here. You thoroughly enjoy communicating. You are an introvert dating an extrovert. You love to share in general. Let's read this. It's sharing something you enjoy and you seek out, you know, the novelty and the wider range of things, or do you prefer to have your own thing, your own plate? Now read this. Do you prefer to have your own thing, your own plate? This is egoism. Monogamy is based on egoism, nothing else. You have everything to yourself. And you can say that men are egoistic who have multiple women, but again, I have to go back to the heredity. It just doesn't work. And most men have the natural tendency to spread their seed. We are natural breeders. We are attracted to multiple women. That's normal for a man. For women, it's not very natural. You welcome challenging emotions. You don't let jealous thoughts and feelings consume you. Now, I want to talk about this part because jealousy is a big thing. Now, jealousy is a created emotion, just like fear. These parasites like to feed on our emotions, especially negative emotions. If you haven't watched the movie called The Maze Runner, please do, because that's where they are harvesting the emotions and the output of a person, the adrenaline, through, tubes and whatnot. But the main point is they are harvesting our negative emotions. They said that they got the best result when the person was traumatized and was fearful of something. So you got the idea, right? That's why they like to do fear-mongering with all those fake shooting and, don't go out of the house because, anytime a terror attack can happen, things like that. That's all fear-mongering. And they then feed on our emotions. They definitely can use that kind of output that we have. Now, jealousy is another programmed, I have to emphasize, program output, because that's not really natural. If you think about it, jealousy can only happen if you think within the monogamy-only framework. If you have the idea that if your man is going to look at another woman, then you have to be jealous because that's wrong. It's also very religious. And religious is something that divides and conquers the whole population of the earth. It's one of the biggest bullshit. And I'm so happy that I came out of it. I also see now that it is not just the Bible, Islam, and all the other religions that are bullshit, but it's quite much inframed into the society. So it's maybe not called religion, but it's called fear, it's called jealousy, monogamy, and so on. These are religious terms at the core. Going back to sharing, I want to show you again this great book by Patricia Dixon Spare, who I showed you on my other video. We want for our sisters what we want for ourselves. There you go. For African American women who practice polygyny by consent. But this is applicable for white women and white men as well, obviously. The point of the matter is that we want for our sisters what we want for ourselves. It's good to share the things that are good. Going back to the point that we just read, that you don't like to share that kind of philosophy. Sharing something good is actually quite natural. For instance, if I have a great video, I want to share it with you guys. Or if I have a music, I want to share it with you. That's how ideas are being shared. If you don't share things, then we are going to be very egoistic people. So sharing. Now, about jealousy, I want to read something from this book that I mentioned to you in my other video, which is called The Polygamous Papers by Hondo Solomon. And let me read this here for you. I'm acquainted with a young married couple who were in a similar situation. The man worked in another part of the state for several weeks on business, and the woman of the house desired that he find another to care for him during his tenure. Her main objective was to make sure his needs were taken care of while she managed their home. Jealousy is all about egoism, is not caring for the other person. But this woman showed that he knows what a man's needs are. Here's another one. A few weeks before this edition came to print, I met a woman whose wife, fatigued from preparing for a family vacation, told him to leave on his own and to find another woman to spend the time for a few days. As he was raised in monogamy, he paused and asked if she was joking. She replied that she was definitely not joking and that he should have fun, and requested that he find a woman of sound mind so there would be no problems as he pursued the relationship. Wonderful woman. She's thinking about her man, and she knows what men need, and she's not jealous. Because jealousy is a fucking stupid programming thinking. Now let me talk about monogamy from a man's perspective as well. Here's a great advice from Mr. Hondo Solomon, who I'm talking to on Skype, and hopefully I'm going to get him to have an interview with me. Man, no matter how beautiful a woman's visage and physique, how well she cares for a home, or how good you believe her sex is, tell her the truth about who you are. Avoid making promises to a woman that you will remain faithful to her, that she is the only one for you today, forever, and always. Because somewhere down the line during your marriage, there may come into your life another beautiful woman with whom you wish to spend time. Your word is your bond, and by speaking candidly with your consort about your desire for a polygynous family, she will be well informed of your intentions. Now this is very important because at most of these ceremonies, when you go and marry someone, at the wedding ceremony, you are going to be repeating the sentence, you only, no one else. It's a fucking lie. So don't do that. I didn't. And I'm so happy I didn't. Because then, once you say that, then you have to retract it, which is quite embarrassing. Let's read what they say about number 6 here. Within the monogamous model, Dr. Sheff explains that feelings of jealousy, anxiety, or insecurity within a relationship are almost disloyal. So at the very least, you should be willing to learn how to deal with your jealousy if you are hoping to make a non-monogamous relationship work. Because it is a skill that you have to practice, managing your own emotions. That's what it is. It's just emotions. And every human being, man and women, are capable of managing their own emotions. Jealousy is just an emotion, a programmed emotions, in fact, by the monogamy-only lie. Number 7, you aren't bothered by the thought of your partner being with someone else. Number 8, your ideal relationship involves multiple partners. Okay, so let's go into the next article that I found on this search. So that is from Psychology Today. Let's have a look at this. I'm going to make it bigger for you guys. So monogamy, it's not what you think. Too often couples assume they know what it means. That's a good point actually, because they don't know that it's actually a fucking programming by the parasites. Disney and Hollywood. Couples often fight over contracts they have never made. Mary Klein, sex therapist. Now, contracts is also, like verbal contracts, there are written contracts, and there are also societal contracts, such as what I guess Mary Klein is referring to, because the social contract, which is monogamy, is that it's a contract. No one signed it, but most people in the West have kind of like this indirect contract of monogamy. Just you and no one else. One of the phrases we often hear in these chaotic times is the new normal. In other words, what was once considered an unquestioned standard has evolved into something we couldn't have imagined before. Especially when it comes to sexual matters. Among the general public, there are numerous layers of mistaken assumptions about what is normal and acceptable. We sex therapists, however, quickly come to understand that there are dozens and perhaps hundreds of sexual behaviors that are normal in society but seldom openly discussed. What is normal monogamy? Take, for example, the notion of monogamy. We are taught that monogamy is the gold standard and anything that strays from that is problematic or flat out wrong. Yes, indeed. You see, these psychologists know because they get all these problematic patients, coming in. And it seems like they are maybe not even that much problematic because they are just dealing with the shit that we are presented with, the monogamy shit. And of course, then you're going to have so-called intermarital affairs, cheating, infidelity, however you want to label it. These are ugly words to prove that polygyny is wrong, to prove that a man is wrong being a man. That's basically what it is. All the feminist agenda is all about that a man being a man is wrong. You are wrong to look at another woman, even though it is natural for you, even though you feel this is normal for you, you don't feel guilt, but your woman, your society, your girlfriend is going to shame you for it. Big time. That's the agenda. So then we have men who lost their masculinity and became emasculated men because they don't dare to be men anymore. It's really tough to be a man in this age because you are being shamed for being a man, really. Most women don't even like beard anymore. So, because that's too masculine. And they fear from masculine men. But you know what? I don't need such women. I have a beard because I'm a man. And I want to keep it. Alright, so back to the article. Gold standard. That's what people are told. That's what all the movies are bombarding us with. Thus, people who are not monogamous nor want to be are judged and often seen as having something off about them. There's something wrong with someone who wants polygamy, right? Because he must be a sex pervert, a rapist, or whatever. That's what they are trying to tell us through all the Hollywood programming. Don't you think that there are other things that a man think about than sex? Yes, sex is important. It's very important for a man indeed. But a man can see also how much her woman is working, and maybe he would like to have some help for her. Maybe he would like some companions for his woman. Maybe he would like to have a woman who he can have a child from because he couldn't have from his first wife. There can be hundreds of different reasons. The irony here is that most monogamous couples I see have never talked about or negotiated what monogamy actually means for them. Something as vague as being loyal to one another, right? But when you begin to ask about specifics, one partner may believe that looking at pornography is cheating. For another, masturbating feels like betrayal. And for another, engaging in sexting or cybersex without ever meeting each other or even being in the same country is cheating. I want to talk about pornography here because that's another way to live out the polygamous tendencies. Because when you are married or when you have a girlfriend and you still watch porn or you still masturbate with, fantasizing about other women, you're basically living out your polygamous self. That's what it is. If that wasn't the case, when you would want to masturbate, you would take out your girlfriend's, your wife's photo, and you would masturbate with that. But that's not the case, usually. Pornography wouldn't be that rampant if that was the case. So, women who are programmed to be monogamous would rather accept a man watching pornography, actually, than having another woman. That's quite sick, I would say. Pornography is one of the sickest idea ever. Not only it is unnatural, it makes men impotent, it creates unrealistic expectations. Men who watch pornography will not go out and meet women because they think that they have a partner. It's basically cheating their own brains. And also, what most people don't talk about when they talk about pornography is that most women in pornography are actually men. They are trannies. I think I'm going to have a video about just this because it's such a huge topic. So most women, because of the programming, would rather have their partner watch this sick pornography than to have another woman. Unbelievable. Unbelievable. Where we are at. This society is so sick. I wonder whether ever we are going to come out of this shit. It's clearly an asylum. We are drugged down and there's so much insanity here. Unbelievable. Now the next thing I found here that was interesting is the School of Life, Alternatives to Romantic Monogamy. So let's have a look at that. Alternatives to Romantic Monogamy. Now, listen to this. Romantic monogamy, okay? That's what it is, because monogamy doesn't go without romanticism. And as I said, romanticism is a huge topic. I have to dedicate at least one video to that. It's a lie. It's a fucking lie. By Disney, by Hollywood, by the parasites. And it never works. Romanticism always show us an unrealistic life. When people don't have 9-to-5 jobs, nor do they have any problems. They don't have finances, they don't have food to eat and things like that. It's a fairy tale. And that's how it only works, in a fairy tale. But in real life, romanticism doesn't work. And when we aspire to it, then we do to ourselves a disfavor. To a greater extent than we perhaps realize when it comes to what sort of relationships we are allowed to have, our societies present us with a menu with only a single option on it. A single option, nothing else on the menu. That's right, the monogamous, cohabitating romantic relationship. Usually served with a side order of children. I like how this is put. Because really this is like a menu, right? Monogamy, cohabitating, romantic relationship, and the side dish, the side order is children. And that's what we are supposed to do. It's like the American dream, quite a bit. Because the American dream is really just that, a dream. None of it is true. You have to be asleep to believe it. And you work hard, and the harder you work, in America, you have to be in America, right? Because it doesn't work anywhere else, right? Because that's the promised land. And so if you work hard, work 9 to 5, perhaps some more because you have to work harder and harder, then you're going to be successful, and because you are successful, you're going to be happy. Now, this is not the case. First of all, the jobs are created in order to slave us. And if you're in a 9 to 5 job, usually you're going to get quite a little amount of money. Most governments around the world don't want people to be independent freelancers and business owners. And that's quite obvious why. Because then they would have the freedom to do things like what I do and spread the truth and research the truth and think independently. They don't want that. A 9 to 5 job ensures for the parasites a slave society. So yeah, back to the American dream. After being successful, now in America you gotta be successful only with credit cards, right? So you have 3 or 4 credit cards that you have to pay off. And you pay for a mortgage as well on your house, which you have to pay on monthly. And also you pay for insurance, the fuel, and all the rest of it, because these are things you've got to have. And by following this programming that people tell you what you should be having, you're basically enslaving yourself. There's no fucking need for having a car if you could use, for instance, bicycle to go to your work, or you could use public transport, or you could rent a house instead of owning one and paying mortgage on it. And of course, the credit cards is a hoax. If you have credit cards, the only way to use it is if you have the money to back it up and you pay it back within 30 days. Or in very special occasions. When you are tight, then you perhaps will pay back within a couple of months, but not years. That's a bad idea. Loans and credit cards are designed to enslave us. So that's the American dream. And at the end of it, of course, you have a woman who is going to divorce you and get all the child support from you. That's the American fucking dream, right? Live it, dream it, stay asleep. If you want to. But I think it's a fucking stupid option. To be considered remotely normal, we are meant to develop overwhelming emotional and sexual feelings for one very special person, who will then become a combination of our best friend, sole sexual partner, co-parent, business associate, therapist, travel companion, property co-manager, kindergarten teacher, and soulmate. And with whom we will live exclusively in one house, in one bed, for many decades, in substantial harmony, and with an active tolerance for each other's foibles and ongoing desire for their evolving appearance till death do us apart. What a fucking joke. It sounds ridiculous, right? Because it is. You can't find everything you want in one woman. It's impossible. Akon said it right. Watch the other video that I'm going to link in the video description below. And actually, thinking within these frameworks, for a woman it's quite detrimental. Because a woman's appearance is going to change after she's going to reach a certain age. And usually her beauty is going to kind of like decrease. That's the way things are. So that means when his man is realizing that this is happening, then he's going to look for other women. Now, whether he's going to feel guilty about it is about his programming. Whether he is religious, whether he is Christian, whether he believes in monogamy, whether he lives in the West. And if all of this is true, and most of the times at least one or two of this is true for a man, then he's going to feel guilty about it, and he's going to keep it secret. So he's going to cheat, which is then going to create all sorts of drama and trouble for both partners. You don't want to go there. For a woman, knowing this, signing up for monogamy is quite detrimental because she should know that she's going to be less beautiful as she's going to age. So a smart woman would actually be up for polygamy because she would know that then, even when she is going to be less beautiful, he's going to have, let's say, a younger girl who he can have fun with, but he's not going to leave her. He's not going to cheat on her. He's still going to protect her. He's still going to provide her. Is that not what women want? Well, based on my experience and my research, that's what it is. Women want to be loved, protected, and provided for. That's basically the three main things. I'm sure that there are other things as well, but these are very important to them. Now also think about this. Knowing all that you have to do in a relationship, being a business associate, co-parent, sexual partner, travel companion, all the rest of it. It's impossible basically. But if these tasks are distributed to several people, then you're sure that your man is going to be satisfied with you. Monogamy creates dissatisfaction in men because they will not be satisfied with their woman because she's not going to be able to do all of that. And it creates a broken family. If you want your man to be satisfied with you until you live together, then you should really think about polygamy, because that is going to ensure that. But what is striking for an arrangement supposed to be entirely normal is just how many people cannot abide by its rules. At least half flunk completely, and a substantial portion muddle along in quiet desperation. Do you want your man to be desperate? Well, he will be after some time. It's much better to avoid this and actually help your man to get more women. At best, only around 15% of the population admit to being totally satisfied, a thought-inducingly low figure for a menu option vigorously claiming universally valid. Well, it's not universally valid as we have seen in the Murdoch study. In our societies, those who can't get on with romantic monogamous marriage are quickly diagnosed as suffering from a variety of psychological disorders, fear of intimacy, clinginess, sexual addiction, frigidity, boundary issues, self-sabotage, childhood trauma, etc. All bullshit. We powerfully imply that someone might be psychologically ill if they don't want to keep having sex exclusively with the same partner or seek to spend every other weekend apart or want to develop a close friendship elsewhere. Now, the reason why men go into pornography, even though if they are happily married, is because they need variety. That's one of the reasons. Not the only one, but one of the reasons. But that variety will be very unnatural. It's going to be on this fucking black scrying mirror, first of all. And second, it's going to be very unnatural because these women are actually trannies. And also, the sexual acts that they do are also very unnatural. So if you rather have your man watch pornography for his desire for diversity, then you are really doing disservice to him and to yourself. You're basically making him a pervert and potentially impotent as well. On the same Google search for monogamy, there is also a great video by Dan Savage I want to show you. Even though he is a gay, I think he says very good things. So let's have a look.
Yeah, absolutely. We need to rethink love and commitment. 60 years ago was when we decided that men had to be monogamous too. Men were not monogamous. For all of recorded human history, men had concubines and whores. And 60 years ago, straight relationships began to become more egalitarian, and it was less of a property transaction. A marriage had been a property transaction for most of recorded human history. And it became a union of two equals. And at that moment, instead of deciding to allow women to have the same sort of freedom and leeway that men did, we decided to let men have the same limitations, impose the same limitations that women had. And we put monogamous sexual commitment at the heart of all relationships, all long-term commitments, all marriages. And we have watched, we should now be able to recognize the consequences of that, which are a lot of short-term relationships, a lot of divorce, because monogamy is ridiculous, and people aren't any good at it. They're not wired for it. We didn't evolve to be. It's not natural. And it places a tremendous strain on our marriages. And our long-term commitments to expect them to be effortlessly monogamous. Because what we've said is, if you're in love, you won't want to have sex with anybody else. And what we need to tell people is that if you're in love, you can make a monogamous commitment and you will refrain from having sex with other people, but you will still desperately want to fuck the shit out of other people. But people understand love means I don't want to fuck other people because of these misconceptions pumped into people's heads about romance and love and what it means. And so they meet somebody else that they're attracted to, and they're attracted to this other person. They go, well, I must not be in love with my partner anymore, otherwise I wouldn't be attracted to this person. Or they feel threatened when their partners are attracted to other people, as if, it makes them feel insecure. And we just need to get past that. And we talk about monogamy the way we talk about virginity, that, you're monogamous till you fuck somebody else, and then you ruined it. You popped your monogamy hymen and destroyed your monogamous relationship. We need to talk about monogamy the way we talk about sobriety, which you can be monogamous and fall off the wagon and then sober back up. You can monogamous back up and get back on the wagon. And the truth of the matter is that if you're with somebody for 40, 50 years and they only cheated on you a few times, they were good at being monogamous. Not bad at being monogamous. They were good at it. So I do think there needs to be some leeway. And a lot of really good, loving relationships are destroyed because somebody wants a little variety or isn't getting a need met and feels they have to step out, and it explodes the relationship. I'm conservative. I think that we should do what we can to preserve marriages and long-term relationships. And one way to do that is to encourage people to have more realistic attitudes about sexual exclusivity.
He's totally right. Monogamy is ridiculous. We are not cut out for it. We never have been. And this change happened around 60 years ago when the sexual revolution came in by the socialists, by the Zionist Jews, basically, who are the parasite entities that rule over this world. And they did it for a purpose, because they know that when people are monogamous, then they can be easily controlled because their society is going to be destroyed at the core, at the family. Now, just a side note about illegality of polygamy. The only thing that is illegal about polygamy in the West and in Europe and in some other parts of the world is to have multiple partners on paper, which is the fucking marriage certificate. And if you haven't watched my video about the marriage certificate hoax, then please do it. I'm going to link that in the video description below. But other than that, polygamy is quite legal. Anyone can do it, anyone can practice it. We don't need a marriage certificate. We can just simply cohabitate with multiple women. And that's it. And that's it for me for today. Can you think of an example of the Disney Hollywood programming about monogamy? Let me know in the comments below. Have a wonderful polygamous day. See you on the next one.
I'm just longing night by night for the other side to be alright, 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 alright.